Hello. Today I will be talking about the Civilization series designed and created by Sid Meier and published by a variety of companies, including Micropose and Fixaris Games. In this presentation, we will discuss a variety of topics regarding Civilization as a series and how it was created, including why is Sid Meier's Civilization so successful and influential? Is it successful in an educational setting? What impact it's had in its genre and beyond? And where it's going in the future. First of all, I want to give a brief overview of how Civilization was created and how it began. Sid Meier, the developer of Civilization, had just left Micropose, the game studio he co-founded, and wanted to develop a new game that was different from the games that he had been developing, which included flight simulators and railroad simulators, among other military strategy type games. He was intrigued by the possibility of making a completely new style of game, a more massive style strategy game that would be turn-based and explored the entirety of Civilization. Whenever he began work on this game, it was just him working on the game along with his coworker Bruce Shelley, who he looked to for feedback on alpha versions of the game. He would make a version of the game and put it on a floppy disk, pass it to his friend Bruce, and get feedback from him the next day, which he would use to iterate on the game and improve the various features he had added. He aimed for it to be a game that allowed the player to play through human history as the leader of a certain civilization, integrating concepts such as war, diplomacy, technologies, exploration, and a dark map that would be revealed as the game went on, which were concepts which have not yet been explored in games all too much, except for possibly the SimCity series. After multiple months of iteration and testing, and a few challenges with getting Micropose to put their support behind the game was finally released in mid-1991. The challenges that they faced getting Micropose on board included the fact that Micropose was mostly focused on more military-style games and didn't want to change or divert from its tried-and-true successes, and that Sid Meier was no longer a full-time worker within the studio, and they had no reason to publish his game above that of a full-timer's. Civilization has had a lot of influence and impact on the community today. It almost immediately became a smash hit, defying everyone's expectations, including Micropose and Sid Meier himself. Micropose, in fact, was very reluctant to even promote or market the game because of its initial reluctance to even throw its support behind the game in the first place. After that, Sid Meier left Micropose to join Firaxis Games, a game studio that another friend of his founded, where he continued to develop Civilization into a number of highly successful sequels. Eventually, Firaxis was acquired by Take-Two Interactive, a big game studio that is one of the biggest ones out there right now, having developed titles other than Civilization, including Grand Theft Auto. The game has become the cornerstone in the 4X explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate genre, which originated and continues to lead. The game genre contains many other series, such as Age of Empires today. However, Civilization still remains the keystone game in that genre. The game has sold millions of copies and has inspired many other series, such as Free Civ, Age of Empires, and more. In fact, Bruce Shelley, his friend, was one of the original architects of the Age of Empires series. In terms of educational use, Civilization is one of the games that has had the most discussion on it regarding uses in potential educational contexts, more specifically, a history classroom setting. It's made its way into multiple classrooms, being used in a variety of settings to teach history and civics. There have been a lot of different studies done on this, including one done with Civilization 3 and Civilization 4 in two different classroom settings. Those studies indicate that students who typically previously might not show an interest in learning about history through traditional means, including textbook or traditional teaching, are far more engaged and learn far more through game-based learning, including through Civilization. And while multiple students are initially hesitant or are unable to fully grasp how to play the game, in the end they end up enjoying it far more than lecture-based or traditional-based learning. In the test implementation in the classroom, a researcher found that students were much more able to absorb as well as apply different concepts from history and be able to more intelligently debate over them and what might have changed had things been done differently. Around half of the students that the game was tested on indicated that they would be very open to further integration of the game into the classroom, stating that the few days that they had spent playing it had helped them greatly with learning the content of the class that they were focusing on at the time. In the end, as research into e-learning and remote learning continues, Civilization and other games will find their way into more and more classrooms. I think that Civilization has a huge influence on e-learning as well as games in educational settings, and we will see it continue to hold that influence as we continue to see Civilization 6 develop. Gamification of educational concepts is a huge topic of interest to researchers today, especially with recent events including the recent epidemic forcing many schools into a more remote style of learning. Civilization 6 is currently being actively developed and expanded, with multiple DLCs and content packs being prepared for release in the near future and another sequel in the works. As the game continues to get more features and creativity, it will continue to define this genre and the use of games in education as a whole.